Hello everybody, Adam Cleary from FourFourTwo here, and Arsenal, they're back. They absolutely demolished Crystal Palace 5-0 at the weekend, but if you're anything like me and you play Fantasy League, you probably watched that game and were really annoyed that they somehow managed to score 5 goals, and Bukayo Saka here didn't get you a single attacking point. But what if I was to tell you that Mikel Arteta has actually played a blinder here, and that Saka's role in that game was as responsible as anybody's for them battering Palace? Because I am. Alright, so Bukayo Saka, you already know this, he plays on the right of Arsenal's 4-3-3, and they never move him. They never attempted to put him on the other side, they never put him in the middle, and they never put him where I won the World Cup with England on Football Manager a few years ago, at left back, for some reason. Now, his job in this system is to provide the width, which stretches the opposition defence, which allows Martin Odegaard to play in that gap there, and also whoever's on the left side to play in that gap there, and for Gabriel Jesus to drop wherever he feels like it. Part of his job is space creation. But he was also, crucially, Arsenal's top scorer in all competitions last season, so by extension, he's their most dangerous player in front of goal. And so, as part of Arsenal's system this season, Arteta has decided to try and get him in front of goal even more than he was last year. And we can see that if we compare his two heat maps from last season and this season. You'll see now he's so concentrated in this area of the pitch, but he also comes across into sort of this area to the right-hand side of the goal quite a lot. There's also a lot of time on the edge of the box when he gets into a shooting position. He's just really, really forward-thinking. And that is quite the change from last season, because if we just swap those out, you'll see that he's still really concentrated in this area, because he's still playing in the same position. He's still trying to stretch defenses, but he doesn't get into the goal area quite as much, and he does pop up seemingly everywhere across the pitch where he isn't doing that this season. Like, I'll just put them side by side for you here in the From Sofa score if you want to go and check them out yourself. Those are two very different ways of playing that position. Like, obviously still all concentrated around here, but having the license to go and receive the ball pretty much anywhere else, and not having that this season. And the thing is though, given that the idea was to help him score more goals, this just hasn't really worked. Like, in its simplest terms, he's scored less goals by this point of the season than he had at this point last season, and he's on track to finish lower than he did last year. But if we start looking at the really, really deep numbers, you'll see that he's just not being as effective. Like, his total number of shots, they are slightly up, but his number of goals are way, way down. And that plays into this thing we've talked about with Arsenal before, that they do still create lots of chances, but they struggle to create lots of good chances. Now, you're going to have to forgive me for just recycling some old footage here, but we did literally just talk about this with Arsenal like last week or the week before. A major issue they're having in front of goal at the minute is they're not getting the ball effectively from these 5 players to these 5 players. Last season, they were incisive, they were hitting these killer balls, they were getting it through the lines, they were beating the press with it. And this season, either by instruction, because they're trying to retain the ball a little bit better, they're trying to control games more, or just because the personnel have changed and Declan Rice isn't doing that as much as, say, Zinchenko or Thomas Partey were, it's just not happening for them. Now, while in those examples we do mention Martin Odegaard, the objective is just exactly the same. It's to get these 5 players the ball while they are between the opposition's defensive lines, either so they can receive it in space or so they can run into the space. You normally need space to make goals, and Arsenal have found that space much harder to come by this season, and one of the players that struggled the most as a result is Bukayo Saka. And it does come at a cost, all of that, by the way, because while Bukayo Saka is undoubtedly good in front of goal, he's good at a lot of things, and if you push him to be more focused on the goal scoring, you naturally take time and focus and attention and even minutes on the pitch away from doing the other stuff. Like, all these stats here, I think, are very important. Like, how well he carries the ball, how often he breaks into the box, how often he runs into the final third, how often he does this, how often he does that, and they are all down this season. His number of shots are up. Yes, he is doing what Arteta wants him to do technically, but it's coming at a cost. Teams will just sit so much deeper and so much more compact against Arsenal, meaning it's very difficult for him to get the ball here because there's not as much space, and it's even harder for him now to go looking for the ball, because now that you've got a more attacking 8 on this side, it means that Martin Odegaard can't really float over there to find the space, and if he can't float to find the space, then Saka can't float into that space to find the space. So there's a knock-on across the entire pitch for him. But what's this got to do with the Crystal Palace game, I can hear you understandably asking. And, well, Arsenal have been away. They went to Dubai, I think. They've had time to refresh, to rejuvenate, to rejig things. And Arteta has obviously looked at the Saka situation while they've been away and said, it's not working. He's not working. He's not working. I can't really do an Arteta. I can't really do an anybody, but it doesn't always stop me trying. So he changed it, and he changed it a way that, yes, took him away from the sort of areas they think he should be playing in, but also got a lot more out of him and was way more beneficial to the team as a whole. And what he did was, well, I'll just show you. So remember, this is Bukayo Saka's heat map for the season so far. This is the areas he has been playing in. This is what he's been concentrating on doing. This is his heat map for the Crystal Palace game. That, my friends, is interesting, isn't it? Against Crystal Palace, Bukayo Saka now had two very different, very effective jobs. Job one was still to hold the width on the right-hand side for the team, as we said before, to stretch the defense, to allow Ødegaard to play in there and Jesus to play in there. The same thing he's always been doing, but crucially, not all the time. Saka was only going very high and very wide when Arsenal's build-up was on the opposite side of the pitch. Now, as you're no doubt aware with Arsenal, what they like to do in their build-up is they shuffle across into more of a back three. Zinchenko comes across and plays in the middle, and they have one of these magic boxes everybody loves. And when said magic box was more over to the left-hand side of the pitch, that would give Crystal Palace a problem, because naturally, they want to move out with them to stay compact, to stay nice and tight so they haven't got room to play in. But if Saka stays there, that gives your left back hell of a headache. The rest of the defense is all over there, and you can't just leave a yawning chasm in the back line, because what if somebody gets a ball through it? You've got to stay over towards your centre-back, which means you've just kind of got to leave Bukayo Saka in loads of fucking room. And when they did leave him in loads of room and they couldn't find a way through on this side, Zinchenko, it normally was just getting his head up and pinging it right the way across the pitch over to him here. It was really effective. But his other job, his far more interesting, his far more cleverer job, was to not do this, in fact, and instead to come really, really short and really, really deep to help them beat the press. Now, as we discussed in the other video, this here is the pass Arsenal have really struggled with. Other teams are quite happy to let these 6 players knock it around while they sit really deep on these 5, and getting it through that first line isn't happening. Now, Declan Rice, who was in the clips we used, he gets a lot of criticism for this because he's being perceived as being risk averse. Now, we don't know if that's an instruction from Arteta, try and just retain the ball, don't play those passes unless you're convinced you can get them off, or whether he's just naturally inclined not to risk losing the ball. Doesn't matter what the reason is, it's still not happening. So what Arteta has instructed Saka to do is instead come really short when they're struggling in these positions and provide a different angle for them to hit these other players. Kind of similar to how Brighton try and get out of defence when they're really, really deep. It's sort of like a bounce pass. A player basically makes a sacrificial run so the ball can go straight off them and put somebody else into a bit of space. And if we overlay his total pass map from that game, you can see he was really, really effective at doing that. Like, he wants to be receiving the ball here and doing dangerous things with it. But if we look at this cluster of passes that he successfully made in this part of the pitch, you can see they're all pretty much back into the field or slightly across it. Like, he's clearly got his back to goal when he's receiving this ball. Here's a really, really good example of it. Crystal Palace are squeezing Arsenal and knocking the ball around at the back, and you can see they desperately want to get this ball out of the back line into Martin Ødegaard, but the passing lanes are all blocked, the individuals are all being marked. Now, under normal circumstances here, either Ben White's just going to hump that down the line, hope for the best, or he's going to turn around, give it back to Raya, and they'll just start again and nothing will happen. But instead, Saka then shows really short off the wing. He drags his marker with him, but he shows really short. He takes a touch, he holds him off, and now straight away you can see that area of the pitch Arsenal desperately wanted to get the ball into is now available to him because he's got a much better angle for that pass, even if he's not facing it himself. Best bit is you can literally see Declan Rice pointing into that space now, because obviously they've been working on this. Like, okay, we've done that bit, we've done the hard bit, now release it. And he does. He gets it all the way across to Havertz in the centre, who's able to drop it off for Ødegaard. And all of a sudden, what are Arsenal doing? They've beat the press, they're between the lines, and they're breaking into space. But there's also another fairly major advantage to having Bukayo Saka do this as opposed to whoever's on the other side, and that is the kid has a motor and an engine, unlike so many other players in the division. If we go back to that clip, you can see that he's not free to do this. He's well tracked by his defender. I want to say it's Tyrick Mitchell. He goes all the way with him into that space. Now, they don't go back to Saka on this particular occasion. They move the ball out to the left. But you can see as soon as Saka drops that off, he spins him. And now he's got all of this space he can run into. And if one of the defenders has to then mop up for Mitchell and come across to sort of stop him getting in, that takes a defender away from Gabriel Jesus. Like, this still is literally just like 2 or 3 seconds after Saka makes that initial pass. He's completely unmarked at the back post. He has more space than he probably would know what to do with. So it doesn't just help Arsenal get out, it creates an opportunity in the final third as well. And yes, I mean, like we said at the start, it didn't get him a direct goal involvement or anything, but across the course of that game, the amount of times he was able to break into the space that his own movement had left by pulling the fullback into the centre of the pitch, it was about 2 or 3 times. He was really unlucky not to actually create something. There's even one bit in the first half where you could just tell Mitchell was like, oh, we didn't plan for this. I don't know. Do I go? I don't know what to do. And then in his indecision, Arsenal just put a ball in behind him and Saka just skinned him in a foot race. And super secret added benefit number 3, when Saka was dropping slightly deeper, meant that Jesus was coming all the way out to the right-hand side, so that when Arsenal would progress up the pitch, Saka wouldn't make his run back up the right-hand side, he'd make it directly through the middle. Again, they didn't get a goal out of it on this particular occasion, but there were a number of times, as you can see here, where the setup is Saka in the middle and Jesus outright. That's a better situation for both of them. So it's a really, really small change, this one. Just don't do this all the time. Come deep when we need you to be an extra body. But it's one that just really did open up Arsenal's sort of other attacking options. He's taken a bit of a hit here. It is a sacrifice role, effectively, given that he's so good in front of goal. But I mean, if it works. Now, yes, of course, we'll caveat all of this by saying it was only Crystal Palace. No disrespect to Crystal Palace, but they're having a bit of a bad run at the minute, and they did sort of collapse. But they're not a terrible side. That is the kind of fixture you could have seen previously to this being a potential banana skin for Arsenal, and they've come through it just absolutely laughing. So, anyway, yes, hope you did enjoy that. I did, because it's kind of like my favourite thing to do. And if you have enjoyed this video or any others we've done on the channel, please do consider subscribing to us. We are on, currently, it's late in the month, but we are on still to have our best ever month for new subscribers, and that would make me really, really happy. So if you've considered pressing the little red button and haven't, maybe now. Anyway, you can get me on Twitter at Adam Cleary, CLERY, FourFourTwo socials in the corner of the video. Latest issue of the mag, available to buy now. I've got a sneaking suspicion I'm holding that upside down, but obviously it's important to maintain eye contact, so I can't check. Oh well, that's a shame. But until next time, yes, Bukayo Saka, very good. Mikel Arteta, salute you, sir. Well done, Arsenal. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Bye.